and welcome back to a series of lectures on herbal medicine. In the first two lectures, we talk about the prehistoric as well as historical development, wherein whatever information was available about the medicinal properties of plants as well as other natural products was compiled, and that in turn resulted in the final achievements of Cratevas, wherein he tried to actually propose what is referred to as the polyvalent drug concept. However, after entering the Christian era, a major achievement was made by a person known as Cratevas, who around 77 AD wrote a text known as De Materia Medica. This was actually a book compiled in 5 different volumes, and in these volumes he tried to actually write down whatever information was available, not only about the medicinal herbs, but also about their properties, the methods of usage, as well as whatever additional components were added. It was able to describe properties of about 1000 different plants, along with about 200 different animal as well as other mineral products. And in all these properties that he was able to describe, he had actually mentioned not only at the stage at which the plant should be collected, not only the part that should be used, but also had mentioned whether one should use it singly or one should try to combine with other plant parts or other physical products like chemicals, minerals, etc., and then try to consume it to overcome certain ailments. This particular text, that is De Materia Medica, remained actually a fundamental text for roughly estimated 1500 long years. That means from 77 AD onwards up to 15th century, this De Materia Medica remained one of the fundamental sources of books regarding not only herbal but also other naturally available medicinal products which can be used to overcome whatever ailments the humans were suffering from. However, the concept had only one drawback, that is, it was used, but nobody tried to actually not only modify it, but never tried to actually add some more information to it, that is whatever was written in this book or in this text regarding the plant as well as their parts. He was then followed by another important person known as Pliny the Elder. Pliny the Elder is given the credit of actually compiling what is referred to as Historia Naturalis. Historia Naturalis is actually a text compilation regarding the history of the humans as well as whatever natural systems they are living in, wherein he had tried to document the evolution of humans from their wild habitats, cave dwelling habit to the domesticated habit, as well as what attributional changes, what habit changes they were actually undergoing, and wherein what sort of naturally available products they were using with modification, not only in terms of pattern of usage, but also in terms of identifying different properties as well as negativities of these plants as well as other natural products. It is said that he was able to compile Historia Naturalis in 37 volumes. Now imagine around 79 AD compiling a text in 37 volumes, out of which 7 volumes from volume 21 to volume 27 were the volumes in which he was able to describe the properties of plants, not only in terms of being used as medicinal herbs, but also whatever positive as well as negative properties they had in relation to the survival of not only humans, but also human related other communities like birds, animals, as well as plants. That means we can label Pliny as a person who has perhaps documented the first natural history account of whatever plants, animals, as well as physical products were responsible for not only facilitating the survival of humans, but also creation of the suitable habitats for their living as well as their survival. This contribution actually is perhaps the basis of dividing different subjects or different categories related to human into subjects, so that one can understand what is the relationship of each of these subjects with each other, as well as what positivity or negativity of these subjects can be useful for facilitating the survival of the humans. His contribution was followed by Saranus. Saranus, who around 138 AD, that is in the Christian era, is actually given the credit of understanding difference between the physiological behavior of males and females. It is said that initially, while analyzing the male and female plant, not only in morphological features, but also in terms of their behavioral variability, he tried to also analyze the same pattern operative or same pattern seen in humans. It is said that this is the person who should be given the credit of actually understanding what is at present referred to as gynecology, but he himself actually labeled it as, I quote him, diseases of women. It is said that once analyzing the plant in terms of their difference, that is male and female plants, understanding their difference, he tried to understand the same difference in humans, that is male as well as female humans, tried to see what differences they have and what sort of variation in the diseases that are actually faced by them are seen, and what are the remedial measures that are useful for males and what are the remedial measures that are useful for females. That is why even at present Saranus is sometimes referred to as a father of gynecology, automatically revealing that his understanding of difference in plant of male nature and plant of female nature in turn helped us to understand what the difference between the behavior of a male human as well as a female human is, and how one can treat the ailments of females in one way and the males in other way. That means we can label Saranus as the father of the gynecological sciences. He was followed by another important contribution made by Galen around 201 AD. Galen is the person who is actually given the credit of understanding what is referred to as experimental physiological phenomena. Now, when we talk about experimental physiology, it means to see as to what happens once we consume something. If we consume food in our stomach, it actually is digested, but by what is referred to as a physiological activity. He tried to understand the same thing regarding what medicinal properties the plants had. He tried to see if we consume a medicinal plant or a medicinal plant part, what physiological effect it has on the consumer's health. That means, if it is altering the functioning of system A or system B, is that system in turn responsible of either overcoming the ailment or actually creating an ailment? That in turn would have revealed that we should either always try to select a physiologically active plant or plant part for consumption purposes as a food, as a medicine, or as some other component, or try to avoid consumption of plants which can be actually harmful, which can alter the functioning of a particular system of the body or actually negate the survival of the humans. That is why Galen is sometimes referred to as a person who understood the concept of physiological performance of the part that is actually consumed by a person as a remedial measure or a medicine, and what sort of attributes it has on the physiological functioning of the organ for the treatment of which it is used. That means Galen can be referred to as a person who has understood the physiological phenomena operative not only in plants, but also in the animals as well as in the humans. He was followed by a person known as Paul of Aegina around 625 to 690 AD, and he is the person who actually is given the credit of publishing the first data regarding surgery. Now, when we talk about surgery, the concept is to understand what is lying inside a particular structure or a particular body. It is said that initially he experimented with plants. He tried to cut the plants into parts and tried to see what is lying within the plant part or plant organs, automatically understanding what the functioning of each part is, and then tried to surgically analyze first the smaller entities like birds and animals, then even the humans. Now, at a period of around 690 AD, to actually dissect a human body, surgically operate a human body and analyze its organs and compare those organs' functions with the organal function of the plants, automatically revealed that the functioning of the cell of a plant is comparable to the functioning of a cell of an animal, which in turn means that whatever remedial measures are required by the plant, the same remedial measures are also required by the animals. That means the Paul of Aegina's surgical analysis in turn helped us to understand what exactly is lying within our body and how the organelle of our body are functioning to not only help us to survive, but also help us to actually not only digest, absorb, but facilitate the proper functioning of the different organs. Some people even at present rate Paul of Aegina as perhaps the first surgeon who analyzed surgically not only plants, but also the humans. That means he must have been able to anatomically analyze what is lying within the human bodies as such. His contribution in turn was followed by Avicenna, who compiled a book known as Canon on Medicine, wherein he was actually able to compile data not only regarding the plants, but also whatever properties these plants, their parts had on which particular organ of the body. That is why the term medical Bible is usually credited or labeled to this canon on medicine. Avicenna was a person who, with the help of his own students as well as other colleagues, was able to compile data not only on the basis of his own experimentation, but whatever data was available in the Central Asia as well as the European parts. He actually tried to cooperate with them, and that in turn helped him to actually write down regarding some of the plants which at present also are commercially useful. I would like to mention a few plants. For example, we have nutmeg, senna, sandalwood. Sandalwood, a plant commercially important not only for its aromatic value, but also for its medicinal properties. It is mentioned in Canon on Medicine. Rhubarb, Rheum imodii, that is at present an important medicinal plant used for rheumatic problems. It is also mentioned in Avicenna. Cinnamon, Cinnamomum zeylanicum, an important plant, medicinal plant, which has been at present credited with many gastrointestinal properties. It is also mentioned in Avicenna's Canon on Medicine. We have clove, that we sometimes use as a spice and condiment. He has mentioned use or properties of clove also, and rose water, which is popularly referred to as arke gulab. He has also mentioned regarding the properties of this rose water in his Canon on Medicine. That means we can label Avicenna as the person who has not only compiled this Canon on Medicine, but in turn has helped us to actually discover and rediscover whatever properties these plants have on the basis of analyzing them chemically, that is to determine what active principle they have, and that in turn helps us to label them official in different pharmacopoeias. Some people label Avicenna as perhaps the father of the Unani system of medicine, while as others actually label him as the father of almost all herbal systems, because it is said that some of the data in Canon on Medicine is from Ayurvedas, some of the data is from the Iranian texts or Central Asian texts, some is from the Egyptian papyruses, so that whatever information was available to ancestors, that has been documented in this Canon on Medicine, and that in turn at present is useful to us to analyze not only the plants, but whatever positivities or negativities they have, so that we can use them as a basic source of a medicine, which in turn can be commercially useful to us. His contribution was actually further modified by his progenial students known as Rhazes, or usually referred to as Zakaria al-Razi, who around 925 AD is the person who actually discovered from the Canon of Medicine what is the remedy for smallpox. Now, smallpox is a deadly disease, and Rhazes, Zakaria Razi, was the person who was able to discover from the Canon of Medicine some plant and their products which had a property to overcome the smallpox problems, automatically helping us not only to overcome the smallpox, but also to actually protect it prior to spreading across different areas or different populations. he also made a second important contribution, wherein he was able to discover that animal gut, that is the intestinal portion of the animals, can be used as a suturing material. Even though Rhazes was a herbalist, he was using the herbal medicine, but he was the person who was able to identify that we can take the animal gut, convert it into thread-like structures and use that as a suturing material at the time of surgeries, automatically helping us to modify the concept of understanding the anatomy as well as the functioning of different organs which are operative in the human as well as other living entities' bodies. That means we can credit Rhazes as a person who has helped us to fully modify the surgical techniques as well as overcoming whatever ailments the suffering patients were. Now, it is said that his discovery, even though a landmark in terms of achievement, actually initiated what is referred sometimes as the Dark Ages. It is said that after his discovery, from 1925 to 1400 AD, no important achievement was made. That is why in major texts you will find that this area is labeled as the Dark Ages. That means perhaps they were trying to use whatever contribution was made by the ancestors, trying to use the same, so that that in turn will help us to not only survive, but also to facilitate the progenial survival also. However, a major change came around 1493 when a person known as Paracelsus not only destroyed whatever historical data was available, but actually asked people not to use the information written or documented prior to his document or his discovery. And his discovery he himself labeled as Doctrine of Signature. Doctrine of Signature, according to him, means that nature itself provides us guidelines, wherein nature creates specific structures in plant parts, and that plant part structure is comparable to the part of the body, and that part in turn can be used for the treatment of the ailment of that part. For example, if we have a palmate structure, that means a hand shaped structure of any leaf or any plant part, we can use that part of the plant for overcoming the ailments of the hand. Or if we have caudate means heart shaped. If we have any structure of the plant or plant part heart shaped, we can use that caudate structure for overcoming the heart ailments. Or if we have a structure comparable to brain, for example walnut, if we look at the walnuts kernels that we normally consume as the grain, if we look at that, the structure of the walnut is comparable to the structure of the brain, and according to Paracelsus, Doctrine of Signature actually explains to us that we can consume these walnuts to overcome the ailments or the sufferings of the brain. Now, this concept became so popular, it is said that people also tried to follow his Doctrine of Signature and never tried to use whatever information of the other workers was existing. Was it Avicenna's, was it Dioscorides' contribution? They tried to follow only the Doctrine of Signature. However, once they found that even though consuming larger quantities of caudate leaves or larger quantities of walnuts, it was not overcoming the ailments of heart or brain, they tried to analyze as to what are the side effects of these, and what they found was that what he is saying is simply a theoretical assumption. It is not having any practical value. Thereby, they also started to destroy his concept, that is, destroy the Doctrine of Signatures, and therefore, they tried to redepend on what was earlier written by the earlier explorers as well as the experimenters. This in turn culminated with a contribution by Leonard Fuchs. He is given the credit of actually analyzing whatever documents were available. Was it Dioscorides' document, was it Avicenna's document, was it any other document? He tried to analyze those and compare it with whatever text data was available in the form of the modern experimentation or modern works carried out during his era. That in turn has helped us to analyze not only positivities and negativities, but which plant one should continue to use and which plant one should actually avoid to use, so that one can actually divide the medicinal plants into two sections. One which is useful even if consumed without any consultation, and one wherein the consultation is necessary because consumption in larger quantities or consumption in lesser quantities can have a negative effect on the health of the consumer without actually having a positive effect on the ailments which he is suffering from. This concept continued for 2 more centuries, that is 16th and 17th century, wherein we tried to analyze what the ancestral information was and tried to prove it experimentally to see whether the effects are the same, or we have to modify not only the usage pattern, but also try to analyze what the remedial measures one should take or what precautionary measures one should take, so that the consumption effects do not alter the functioning of the body organ or the whole system, that is the whole body as such. And that in turn actually started or resulted in what is referred to as experimental medical sciences. Now, when we talk about experimental medical sciences, here the concept is to analyze experimentally any part of a plant and its effect on any part or any system or any function of the body of the consumer. That means, if I label plant A as medicinal, try to analyze what its effects are, I have to experimentally monitor that particular organ on which one can see what are the positivities or what are the negativities of that particular portion. This in turn actually culminated first with Edward Jenner in 1796, who discovered what is referred to as a process of vaccination. It is said that experimentation revealed that one can actually extract from the plant a component and inject that component into a specific part of the body, which in turn is at present referred to as vaccination, for which the credit is given to Edward Jenner. That means the experimentation first culminated with Edward Jenner. Then another important achievement was made by William Withering. William Withering is a person who is actually referred to as a father of treatment of the heart ailments. He is the person who is given the credit of discovering foxglove. Foxglove is a plant, Digitalis purpurea, which is usually cultivated as an ornamental, and in that ornamental plant the foliage has an alkaloid digitoxin, and that digitoxin has a prominent effect on the functioning of the heart, for which the William Withering is given the credit of analyzing it experimentally and seeing that if patient is suffering from heart ailments, if we inject into his body the foxglove extract, that is digitoxin, his heart will function properly, and that in turn will help us to overcome whatever ailments he is suffering from. He was followed by Joseph Lister. Joseph Lister is the person who actually is given the credit of extracting chemicals from the plant and plant parts and helping them to use as a material for initiating anesthesia. Ordinarily, if we look at the historical development, we have seen operations or cuttings or surgical treatments being carried out without actually giving anesthesia, but this anesthesia was discovered by Joseph Lister, who was able to identify that if we inhale the aroma of a particular plant or a plant product, that in turn can actually anesthetize the consumer, and that in turn will help us to easily perform the surgical activities on the body or body organ of the person who is suffering from a specific ailment. That means the discoveries, even though gradual, in turn culminated in what is referred to as the modern system. However, at present, if we look at the status of different systems of medicine, we find that even though the modern systems are predominantly used throughout the world, yet we have seen that there is never tendency of humans as well as in both developed as well as underdeveloped countries to try to use herbal medicine. Now, question here is why? Why do we still tend to go back to herbal medicine? Why not we try to use the allopathic or synthesized medicine, synthesized chemical drugs? Primarily because they all have side effects, while as the herbal medicine do not have the side effects on the consumer's health, even though consumption pattern may be in excessive quantities, or the consumption pattern may be continued for not only weeks, sometimes even months, sometimes even years. On the other hand, if we consume manufactured drugs for a period of more than 1 week, it has been seen to drastically affect the functioning of the different systems of the body of the consumer. That automatically reveals that the herbal system, even though in terms of age very old, in terms of potential not commercially as useful as the modern systems are, yet we find that at present we are trying to redepend or trying to reanalyze the properties, which in turn will help us not only to modify, but also to use whatever positivities they have, so that we can use the naturally available resources, that is herbs, for overcoming whatever ailments we have or whatever ailments we are suffering from, for which no other remedies from the synthesized medicine or synthesized drugs is not available. Now, it means that the discoveries made by ancestors, even though in terms of history is much old, but in terms of usefulness or in terms of usage is as good as the present or modern system of medicines are. Now, I hope that through these 3 lectures you might have understood how much of a time it has taken us to understand what the concept of the herbal medicine is, how we have analyzed them, what are their positivities, what are their negativities, and in the next few lectures I would try to explain different plots, their properties, their methods of cultivation, their methods of usage, and the stages at which we should use the plants as a remedial measure or as a remedial source available in our natural habitats, or which we can cultivate on not only for our personal purposes, but also for commercial purposes. Thank you.